said 60. Good afternoon. Hello, thank you for coming. It's so, incredible to be here. It's been a bit of a dream. I've been to many DevOps here, and I was in the audience, but being right in front here, talking to you guys about Microsoft and open source, well, it's a privilege. I'm so happy to be here. And even if I said that, it's really uncomfortable to stay here because I tend to fall. So if I stumble, you know what happened. So here I am to talk to you about Java and Windows, two words that usually didn't go together, but I want to tell you why things have changed. And as someone told me the other day after I mentioned all the stuff that Microsoft is doing, well, there is a new Microsoft in town. And yes, indeed, I joined the company 3 years ago, after spending roughly 20 years in open source, and I was sure that it was going to be exciting, and exciting it was when I look at what we've been doing. As a matter of fact, I had 2 jobs at Microsoft because 1.5 years after I started, I joined a wholly owned subsidiary of Microsoft called Microsoft Open Technologies, where we do a lot of goodness about open source, including stuff like Node.js, like this work that we're going to talk about on Java today, like recent contributions to Chrome and Firefox, and all the stuff that you may or may not have heard of. New Microsoft. That also means no slides. So you're not going to see PowerPoint. You're not going to see bullet points. I want to show you code. I want to show you stuff. The code that I want to show you today is relatively simple because I'm really going to focus on the deployment aspect. I want to talk about the cloud. I want to talk about what it brings. I want to talk about what you can do with Windows Azure. But most of all, I want to show it to you. So without further ado, and by the way, I don't know if you came by the booth. If you didn't, you're probably missing out because at the end, we are going to raffle out a wonderful new Surface 2 RT and a great Lumia 1020. So that's some good stuff for a lucky person in the audience today. So I'm going to keep it short to make sure that we have time to do the giveaway as it should be. So Windows Azure. How many of you are using Windows Azure today? Lots of potential customers. Oh, wow. Nice. How many of you know that Azure runs Linux? A few more hands. Good, good, good. So the word is spreading. As a matter of fact, there are tons of goodness in Azure when it comes to open source. But to me, it's mostly about choice, and it's mostly about what's there. Today, we are going to talk about Java, but incidentally, we are going to touch on a number of things. So let's talk about building applications for the cloud. Applications for the cloud. First of all, we think that the cloud shouldn't be intrusive. So we're talking about good old Java applications. And of course, we have to start by the omnipresent hello world. So the code that you're going to see today is probably not going to make any eye pop. Simple JSP, some persistence through the session. We'll do some little fancier stuff, saving things in Azure blobs, which are the basic unit of our storage. But that's pretty much about it. What I really want to show you is how easy it is to deploy it, and once you deploy it, how easy it is to scale them. So here's the code for those of you who want to see it. It's really super simple. Again, nothing special. As a matter of fact, I can actually run it locally, and it should work just fine. There we are. So this is my super app. As you can see, I have some serious Java skills here. All right. Let's do this. Yeah, it works. So this is running locally on my computer. Again, nothing fancy, just an instance of Tomcat. Nothing particular, nothing to write home about. The point here is how do we turn this into a cloud application? And moreover, how do we turn this in a cloud application that can really leverage the cloud? To us, that really means elasticity. It really means the capability to go beyond simple deployment that mimic what you can do on a server under your desk. So in this case, what are we going to see is the work that we did on Platform as a Service. Platform as a Service for us is a fully managed service. We're going to talk about it a little bit in a short while. But suffice to say that in a Platform as a Service, you're not supposed to manage your operating system. You're not supposed to manage your infrastructure. You're supposed to care about your application. And Windows Azure was born initially as Platform as a Service, and this is what we really believe. As a matter of fact, we actually do have two different solutions when it comes to Platform as a Service. So let's explore the Azure portal and start managing them. This is what you see when you log in into the Azure portal. By the way, logging in doesn't require any money. There are free trials available. And as a matter of fact, I'm not using any kind of corporate account for doing these demos. I'm using my MSDN subscription that gives me $150 per month worth of Azure credits. This is just a personal thing, so this does not depend on Microsoft, and this runs my personal website and all the demos that I'm doing around with a lot of money to spare. So Platform as a Service, we have two different services that do that. The first of them is what we call websites, right here. So on Azure websites, what you have is a web server that runs your content. You can throw at it pretty much everything. You can throw at it .NET code, of course, but you can also throw at it PHP code, Python code, Ruby code, Node.js. You can publish using Git, you can publish using FTP. We give you all the tools that you know and love for Platform as a Service, and basically everything that you can throw at a web server is fine. It's just files, and that's it. Now, when it comes to Java, talking to customers, talking to developers, what we found out is that there is a need for more flexibility. There is a need for a little bit more control. It's not just send me a war and I'll do things for you. So what we came up is with cloud services. For cloud services, imagine them as your user account in the cloud that can run any arbitrary executable. Okay? The thing is that it is managed for you. That means that it can auto-scale. That means that we can replicate that all over if you had a higher workload. That means, incidentally, that we manage the operating system, we patch it for you, and we patch all the underlying layers. Now, what that means for you is that it makes deployment a little bit more complicated because you're sending us also the executables that you want to run. So you need to tell us, what do we need to do? You're basically sending us an installer, right? That's the point. And this is why we have created a plugin that helps you with that. So the way it works is that in Eclipse, we have an Eclipse plugin. By the way, the plugin is open source. I think it's worth mentioning because it might help you understand that pretty much everything that touches developers in Azure is open source. The SDKs are open source. The SDKs are based, by the way, on pure REST calls. So there's nothing preventing you from using directly the REST layer, except that you don't have to because you have open source SDKs that you can use. And by the way, if you find a bug, send us a patch. They are on GitHub. So just go there, download them, play with them. They're available for all the languages that Azure supports, which are many. So on top of the SDK, we built the Eclipse plugin, which again you can find on GitHub if you want to compile it for yourself. Or you can just download it as you would download any Eclipse extension using an Eclipse update site. Once you have that installed, it will prompt you to install the Azure SDK. And again, everything is automated for you. So it's just a lot of click on next. And then you're ready to go. The first step that you need to do, and here is where for Eclipse user may get a little confusing, is that you need to create a separate project. But again, think about it. you are creating a package. You are creating something for the cloud that has to use some very specific stuff for the cloud. So what you end up is a sister project. As you can see here, I already created it for you, but we can quickly walk through and create a new one so that you see what it means. All I need to do is create a new Windows Azure project. I'll give it a name, and today I'm feeling creative. Okay, let's see what we got. So, Azure choice. We offer, since we are able to run any executable for you, we can offer you the choice of running the JVM that you prefer. So it's not just the JVM that is provided, and we will talk about it in a second, but it's also the JVM that you may have on your hard drive. So this is the JVM that I'm using for testing locally, and then I can decide to deploy my local JDK, so the ones that I'm using for development, or use one that is provided by our good friend at Azul. You know who Azul is, right? Azul, the makers of one of the most high-performant Java VMs, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we partner with them, and we partner with them to produce a build of OpenJDK for Windows, something that honestly was sorely missing. So as of a month ago at Java 1, when we announced it, you can now download a fully open source, fully certified, fully approved, with all the seal of authenticity, JDK from the Azul website, and we are making it available for you to deploy on Azure as well, just as easy. You don't have to upload anything. But if for some reason you prefer your local JDK, you prefer your local environment, et cetera, you have the opportunity to do that. I'll just use the stock one. And by the way, we offer you the possibility to deploy it from an internet site, so a remote location, a storage account on Azure, or just a hard drive. So, going on next. I'm accepting a license agreement, and then I need to tell the plugin about the application server if I need one. Okay? So, we told him, okay, use this JVM, and now we need to give him an application server. So I'm giving it my Tomcat. All right, let's do this. All right. And then, as you can see, what happens is that we have detected automatically that it is Tomcat, and it is Tomcat 7. But these are all the application servers that we automatically support. So you don't have to stay with Tomcat if you don't want to. You don't stay with version 7 if you don't want to. You also have Glassfish. You have a bunch of JBoss. You have a bunch of Jetty. Okay? So again, choice, flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. We really believe that in the Java world this is important because Java applications are a bit different. They usually come with custom configuration. They usually connect a lot of moving parts. So providing this kind of choice, we believe is important. There are clearly workloads that could benefit just for a word drop-in, and we will definitely take that into consideration. But right now, what we wanted to cover was the widest possible spectrum. Remember, out of this, you still get a fully scalable system. So something that in the portal, you will be able to scale just by dragging a slider to as many instances as you want. By the way, you get it fully highly available. By the way, you get it geographically distributed wherever you want, et cetera, and all the goodness that comes from the cloud. So next step, I need to tell the plugin what my application is. What do I want to deploy? Here we have a small example that I'm removing, and then I'm just telling my app to use an existing project. Okay, so the app has the smarts to go to the sibling Eclipse project and try and understand what is the artifact that needs to be deployed. Since we are talking about web apps, it's going to look for WAR files, it's going to build them, and it's going to deploy it for you. So there are still a few things, a few goodies that we can do for you. And they turn out to be pretty useful. I'm sorry, I keep on zooming because I feel that you cannot read the text, but stop me if you're getting seasickness or anything. So we can do session affinity. Well, you know what it is. It's easy, but it basically means that we are also instructing our load balancer to keep sending connections from the same client to the same machine so that if you don't have a setup that shares session state, you're good to go. We can do caching. This is in memory and compatible with Memcache. So nothing new for you. It's the stuff that you use likely every day. And we can do remote debugging. By the way, those are not one-time choices. As we will see, those are choices that we can do afterwards. All right? So I'm going to finish. And my deployment project is here. It's created. Okay? Now, what I can do here is go straight to deployment, or I can decide to run it in an emulator. All right? So we saw it running locally on a vanilla Tomcat. I can also use an emulator. The emulator gives me the added benefit that really and truly emulates the Azure environment in terms of, as an example, providing me local API for storage, et cetera, et cetera. Again, in a number of cases, you just don't need it. You're well off without it. You just take your normal application and you send it to the cloud. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Now, of course, this is doing some privileged stuff, so we are waiting. This is the storage emulator that is coming up. And here we go. Oh, yeah, and of course, it's not working now because I already have port 8080 blocked. But anyways, you get the gist of it. So at this point, what we can do is deploy this right away. So I'm choosing to deploy it, and let's zoom in and take a look at what we have here. Of course, the metadata it needs are the ones that you would expect. We need a storage account because we are adding a bunch of stuff in the cloud, but the good thing is that, again, the plugin has the smarts to connect to your account, retrieve the existing storage account, and see if there is something that fits, or you can always create a new one. We need a service name, all right? This is the way that we are tagging our service in the portal, so choose the name that you like. We're going to call this DevOps DM1. And here is where we're starting to say, all right, well, we're in Western Europe, so we're probably better off deploying closer to us. This is a good point for me to tell you that Azure has quite an impressive infrastructure. And it might seem non-natural, but when you think of Microsoft, don't think only of Windows and Office. Think of Bing, think of MSN, think of Skype, think of Hotmail, think of Outlook.com. We do run one or two services that are at internet scale, and we know what it means. As a matter of fact, we are incredibly proud of our data centers because we believe they are pretty good. And the coverage on a planetary perspective is pretty good as well. We do have this many data centers, more are coming up, and that allows you to really do affinity. By the way, this also comes with a bunch of goodies when it comes to storage. As an example, your storage account, you can define that your content, the content that you store, is automatically sent to the Azure CDN. So that means that you set up a service in Europe and it lives and breathes in Europe. I'm accessing it from the United States. I will access the United States copy of that storage. So that, again, is taken care from you, and it's stuff that is pretty complicated. I can choose the operating system that I want to run. Ah, surprise. Path runs on Windows Server. You can use Windows Server 2008. R2, you can choose Windows Server 2012. All right? And then here I can decide whether I want to do a staging deployment, so I want to test it out before I put it to production, or a production. The other thing that I can do, Azure supports RDP. So I want to show you that we can log in. Once we're done, and use the machine pretty much as if it was local. And off it goes. All right. So now what I'm going to do, while this one goes, first of all is I'm going to do a trick like the cooking shows, and I'm going to connect to an existing one. This is the existing one that are previously deployed, and this is where we are. So this is how we deployed an application in the cloud. Again, it's simple, it's guided, it's a wizard, it's absolutely repeatable, you can integrate it easily into your workflow. Two things that you have to remember. First of all, this is a platform as a service deployment. That means that it should not rely on local resources, because those local resources may not be there at a certain amount of time. Those machines are ephemeral. They can be rebooted for whatever reason. We can update the operating system from time to time. We give you all the guarantees, by the way. I mean, if you put more than one machine in an availability set, we will never reboot the two at the same time, so your service will always be up. But you have to keep in mind that the server can come and go. And so relying on local files, relying on local resources, relying on assumption that that machine will always stay the same is bad. But guess what? Whenever I talk to cloud architects, to people that are developing applications for the cloud, this is nothing but a rule of good cloud hygiene. You shouldn't do it anyways. So it just reflects a limitation that allows you to do wonderful stuff instead. And the other part that you always need to remember is that you're creating an installer. So the logic behind the installer is, what do I do if I have to provision another one for you? What are the steps? So if you want to go and customize it, you need to understand that the final result, which by the way is a file with the extension cloud service packages, so CSPKG, that you could upload just using the portal, so without using Eclipse or using your best automation tools. By the way, it's an open format, it's documented, you can know what is there, and we're giving you the tools to do that. But the end result of all this is an architecture that is, again, infinitely scalable and manageable. And when I think of it, and when I think of what are the economics and what are the effort, well, you know, I just can say that I love my job. I'm so excited to live this time. As a matter of fact, let me take some time to give you a bit of a story. A couple of weeks ago, I was cleaning up old files in my home, and I came up with a proposal that has been sitting in a drawer for now more than 12 years. Right? So 12 years ago, I was in Italy. I was managing the technical team of a startup doing multimedia stuff, and we came up with this crazy idea of doing the first ever TV show where people would interact with SMS text. And we thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool? So we got one of the famous guys that were running music show on MTVs. We got a wonderful cast. And all of a sudden, I had to make it happen technically, right? So 12 years ago, that meant buying servers. Now, that's the first problem. How much do you buy? Nobody did it before. As much as you can study the scale, how do you deal with the incoming flux? There's money on the line. This is a quiz show where we are awarding prizes, so there are also regulatory things, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you know, we went for expensive servers. That was the way to go. And we crossed our fingers, hoping that it was enough. And then we said, all right, now we need to get the SMS. We need to get the text. We called the telcos. We had 4 different telcos in Italy. That meant 4 different leased lines, all right, that we had to run to our office, more precisely to the closet that we transform in a data center by putting some air conditioning and making sure that we had some power continuity. And then we had to struggle in making all those 4 SMS centers talk to each other. Thank God we found an open source project called Cano. I don't know if you ever heard of it. This is old stuff, but that really saved the day. Now, the proposal I had in my hand was the proposal I went in front of my board with. And it had a price tag of $400,000. Can you imagine the eyes of the board? When they're grilling me and telling me, okay, do you really want to do this? Are you sure? This could make or break our company. Eventually, we decided to do it. We had cold sweats the day of the first show, but yeah, we did it. We spent $400,000. The show was successful. The servers were up 2 days a week. After 10 weeks, they became expensive coffee tables, but it worked. Now, I thought, all right, what if I were to do it with the cloud today? And I tried, just for kicks, to think about the math. And many things changed, by the way. So I also made an assumption. I made an assumption that, hey, I can work mostly with smartphones. I can build apps. I can build websites. I can build notifications. That gives me in front of the audience that I need. And I can build on the cloud. Incidentally, by building on the cloud, what I would get is the ability to sleep at night, knowing that if I build an application that is automatically scalable, well, I don't care about the night of the show. I will start 20 servers just to make sure, 50 servers just to be sure. They are running for the few hours before and after the show, and I'm good to go. So I use the Azure pricing model, but any cloud will do. You will recognize that you are going to get pretty much the same results. And I was astonished. I came up with a bill of $200. So for 400,000 to 200. That's miraculous. That's incredible. I have to say that $200 was the adventurous way. All right. If I really wanted to put belt and suspender, it would have been probably something in the region of $10,000. I made some assumption in the $2,000 case, like, all right, well, I don't need the service to be up all the time. But let's say 10,000. Let's say 20,000. Let's say 40,000. It's still a fraction of what it costed before. And what it makes me think is, well, how many scenarios are we unlocking in this time? What is the opportunity out there? And seeing how, on the other hand, it also has become easier because we are really a couple of API calls away, well, it makes me think that we're going to see some good stuff coming by. So in the meantime, while I told you this story, we have a new deployment now that is coming up. And this is what it looks like. See the URL? So this is a UID. This is because we asked for a staging deployment. So Azure is assigning us a dummy DNS name so that we can then do whatever we want with it. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Am I connected? Let me see. Are you there? Okay. So let's see what happened here. It's not here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is a good way for me to show you what it means. So what we have here in the top left corner is our service. All right? This is what in Azure we call a role. Think of a role as a DNS name. This is what your service will be known to the world as. And then to that role, we are associating instances. And this is the one that is currently running. Okay. By the way, this instance is free. It's a small instance. It's part of the Azure package and it's free. And this is what I can do. I can connect to it. I can RDP to it. I can reboot it, etc., etc. I can update the package. Remember, I told you I can just take the package and move on. So this is what it looks like when you deploy a cloud service using Java. But there is more to it. Again, flexibility and choice. I also wanted to show you that we also have infrastructure as a service on Azure, and it's a first-class infrastructure as a service. So what I can choose to do is come here on virtual machines and decide to create a new one. So when I want to create a virtual machine, I'm just going to create it from the gallery. And again, let's zoom a little bit so we can see what we have. So this is the choice that we are giving you. You can choose from a bunch of Windows servers. You can choose for a few add-ons and packages that we have, and then you have Linux. You have the choice of these 4 images. And with these 4 images, which are coming directly from the producer, I can choose to have a new Ubuntu server. I'm going to give it a name. One small core is fine. I can choose to use SSH. So again, nothing new, but okay, there you go. Let's skip this one. Okay, and here we are. I can decide this virtual machine is going to join an existing service, or I can create a new one. So in this case, I'm going to create a new one here. I'm going again to go to West Europe, storage account. This is the availability set, so the idea that machines are available as part of a number, of a cluster, if you want. Here I can configure the firewall. Of course, by default, everything is blocked. I need to open what I really want to open. So here, let's just say that I'm going to call this port HTTP. And I'm going to say that it's a TCP port, and it's going to be 8080. And here we go. So here we are creating the virtual machine. Here we are creating a Linux machine that runs on top of Windows Azure. So that'll make me surprised again. Actually, again, let's do the cook show test. This is it. Okay, so this is Linux running on top of Azure. It's an Ubuntu machine, 64 bits. You can run whatever you want. What I did here was just adding Tomcat, launching the web apps, and I am home free. This is exactly what you would expect from an infrastructure as a service provider that will give you a disk, will give you a machine with memory, etc., etc., etc. So there are no surprises here except for the fact that, well, it's still Linux. It runs on Windows, and it got some head turned. We said that we had 4 different images for you. What if I told you that it's actually those images are not 4, there are more than 700? 1 year ago, we launched a community website called VM Depot. And this is the one that I want to show you. It's a bit of my baby, so I'm very proud of it. So what we did, we gave the opportunity for the community to come and deploy images with open source software on top. This is something that you can also find on other platforms, but here we were pretty successful because not even a year after, we already have more than 700 images. And if I'm looking at simply Java, I'm seeing quite some choice. I'm seeing Tomcat, seeing Story. This is all pre-configured and ready for you. It's a lot of less work. By the way, a lot of those images come from a very good partner called Bitnami. They are doing really a good job at curating those open source packages and make them available for you. And I think I have a pretty good chance at just trying your random open source package, and it will probably be here. So, and if it's not, I invite you to come and do it yourself, because it's really easy. And by the way, it's completely free. You don't need to have a paid Azure subscription to do it. And you don't have to pay for the storage of this image. This is not a place where we are pointing to your repository. We are hosting it for you. So it's completely at zero cost. And it's been a great way for a lot of developer groups to come together and do some seriously fun machines. So VMDepot is the other option. The image gallery is the other option. And again, infrastructure, platform, you choose. Probably the best solution is a mix of two. And actually, this is what we're seeing the most. We're seeing the most that a lot of applications today, first of all, are written using a mix of technologies. It's pretty fashionable to write front ends in Node.js, as an example, that talk to Java backends. Well, in those cases, you can do that using a website as the front end, so very easy. You just deploy using Git, and a cloud service on the back end. If you have something more complicated, you have to run your own database, et cetera, well, then maybe you can and should run also a virtual machine. But the choice is yours. We want to provide it to you, and we want to provide it in a way that allows you to connect all the dots of your cloud architecture in the simplest possible way. And I have to say that so far, it has been worked pretty well. The reception has been very good, because they can see, developers can see that they still have control. So usually when we talk about migrating an app to the cloud, having the ability to provide infrastructure as a service is key, because you just have to forklift your application, bring it in the cloud, bring it in the cloud under a VM, and you're good to go. And then, with time, you can take it to the next level. And the reasons for taking it to the next level, again, are both technical and rooted in economics. It just costs less, and it scales much better. So this is what we invite you to do. Now, we've been talking about the base capability of Azure. This is just about what in the cloud is called compute, right? So the idea that you can have machines doing work for you. Let's talk about some added services. The first of which may well be, oh, sorry. Let me do this again. The first of which may well be storage. That's what applications need as well. They need persistence. So storage in Azure, the way it works is that it's separated. Let's take a look at the simplest one, which is just block storage. We have also SQL. We have a number of other solutions that we are going to explore shortly. So for storage, what we have are really storage accounts that have what we call containers. Okay, so a container is nothing more than a bucket, if you like. It's something where you can put stuff in it. And as an example here, what happened is that the Eclipse plugin has been using it. So what we have deployed is also sitting in a blob. And I've been using it for my application. So let's go back to a little bit of code to show you how it works. So here we have our hello world, store stuff in the session, easy peasy. What if I want to do something more? And what I decided to do here was to build something that would save stuff into a blob. Okay, so blob again, key value, very simple, nothing special about it, just raw data. Okay, so what I did in my JSP page was just to create what I call, with a lot of fantasy and not a lot of humility, a persistent manager, which is really a poor man one, but I will show it to you in a minute. And this is all we need to do to write to blob storage. So let's walk through this. Okay. So these are API. There's nothing complicated in this, right? So What you have is an access key, which is a token. Here's the good news. You don't need username and password. This is something that you can give away. Every time you create a storage account, Azure will give you what it calls a primary access key and a secondary access key. The idea is that the secondary access key can be freely embedded, say, in your applications, in something that you distribute, because it can allow for different ACLs to be set, and it's pretty safe. It doesn't contain any reference to your personal information or even words your credentials. So once you have that access key, which, by the way, if you're curious, I just stuck it in the web XML. It looks like this. Okay, so nothing more than an opaque UID. All right. So once you have that, you create a client. Once you have a client, you get a reference to a blob storage. Once you have that reference, you create your containers, and inside your containers, you save your content. All right. You can set ACLs here, and this is how we set it up in the constructor. When we want to write and when we want to read, well, again, there's nothing magic here. We're talking about the input stream. This is pure Java. This is nothing that should be a surprise. We're just getting a reference to the container, and we are reading from the stream. Okay? So what it means is that, if I go back here, come on. All right. So we are here, and I want to run this locally. Can't do anything fancy. Okay, so blob.jsb. All right, so what we have here is something that we are writing in the blob. So this is the read from the blob store, right? Now all this, we saw the Java part of it, but there is more to it. There is the HTTP part of it. Every single thing that you do with Azure is actually just a REST call. It's an HTTP call, returns JSON, returns XML. It's fully documented for you. So that means that I can do fancy things, just as going back to my portal, looking here. So this is the container that we have created. And here I have an HTTP URL. So I'm just going to open a new page, paste the URL, and getting my content through HTTP. Okay, so again, it may seem relatively easy, and it is, but when you think that this content could be protected with complex ACLs, so right now, of course, it's open to everyone. When you think that this content can be part of the Azure CDN, so it can be spread around the world, so you get one URL, and that URL takes off all the heavy lifting of figuring out which IP address to associate in the DNS return response based on where the user is. When you think that all this is an HTTP call away, well, boggles my mind. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a lot of stuff again. And I want you to understand that I work for Microsoft. I love what we're doing here, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes about what we can do today. I'm looking back again at the many projects that I did over the years and the complexity that we had to go through. And when I look at the opportunities that these architectures, not just Microsoft, pretty much everyone out there, allows you to do, well, it makes me think that there's never been a better time to go out and do something, because that's where we want to be. So we looked at blob storage. Again, I showed you the Azure APIs. Believe me on this, I don't want to go through one-on-one. Here's how you do tables. Guess what tables are. Here's how you do queues. That's how queues are. Here's how you do this, this, and that. I trust that I may have enticed you enough to give it a shot and see what it is for you. I'm more interested in showing you what you can do beyond that. Okay? So, as you see, what we are doing here is we're having this journey where we're peeling the onion. Right? So we started with the basics, compute. Then we went to something that is, again, basics, but a little bit more convoluted because, I mean, we do have storage in our VM. It's just a disk. It's something we know and love. But here, we have blob storage and tables and queues, and this can be distributed, and this can be managed in a different way, et cetera, et cetera. But we probably need more. We need SQL databases, as an example. As easy as this. And this is what you can do to get a SQL database for your account, you know, the free one, and it's super simple. We have the storage account that we saw. HD Inside is an interesting one. So HD Inside is actually Hadoop. Right? So this is Hadoop, a completely managed version of Hadoop. Now, I have seen a few Hadoop clusters, and I can tell you that Hadoop is in one of those categories that you cannot call yourself a system administrator if you've never configured a Hadoop cluster, and you cannot call yourself a system administrator if you have been so stupid to configure a second one, because it's one of those things that it's pretty hard to maintain. Here, well, you're buying it at the supermarket by the pound, by the terabyte, by the compute node that you need, et cetera, and it's fully managed for you, right? I think that here there is also a nice point to make about how Microsoft is doing open source these days, because we decided to do Hadoop. We decided that customers wanted big data is important, everybody's using Hadoop, Hadoop is a great platform, let's do that. Right? There are a number of ways to do that. I mean, it's open source, right? It's Apache licensed. It would have been as simple as go grab it, right? Go grab it and run it. But, you know, at Microsoft, we really care about doing things right. And I think that part of it is the idea that we are not ashamed a single bit about our proprietary offering. We believe in it. We believe that it's fine. And that allows us to do open source the way it should be done, by reaching out to the community and going there hand in hand and try to find a mutually agreeable setup. In this case, we came with two promises. First of all the modification that we were doing on Hadoop would have been given back to the community. By the way, those were modifications that would allow Hadoop to run better on Windows, et cetera, et cetera. So we were not talking about developing new feature, although eventually we got there and we are getting there by extending the Hadoop ecosystem with more open source software. And moreover, we were committed from the beginning to 100% compatibility between the two instances. So your MapReduce jobs, the things that you write for one or the other, will work in either situation. They will work in Hadoop, in Apache Hadoop, they will work in Cloudera Hadoop, they will work in HD Inside, they will work in any compatible Hadoop environment. Right? So we came there with that idea. Well, lo and behold, now we are a good committer, a good community member of Apache Hadoop. As a matter of fact, the PMC chair, the project management committee chair at Apache of Hadoop, is a Microsoft person, right? As a matter of fact, I am a vice president at Apache as well. As a matter of fact, the president of the Apache Software Foundation joined my team 3 months ago, which makes for a nice situation because he reports to me from 9 to 5. But then he is the president, I'm a vice president, so I report to him after hours. So, you know, I yell at him because he didn't do stuff, and he yells at me because I haven't submitted my report on time. But anyways, and by the way, we are still trying to figure out how many committers to Apache project are in Microsoft. We are discovering them every day. And I think this is fantastic. That means that we have really changed. We have changed as a company. We have become more open, and this is the game we want to play. So Hadoop, Azure, try it out. For your big data needs is there, all right? Media service is another one that is worth looking at. Again, keep in mind that all this is really a couple of REST calls away. Media services is encoding, decoding, transcoding, and content delivery. If you have multimedia content, we think that this is a very solid server. Well, service bus, I shouldn't tell a Java audience what a service bus is, shouldn't I? So this thing runs AMQP. So it's completely standard, it's completely open, and you can use it today. Visual Studio Online is nice. It's the one that has started now, so running Visual Studio in the cloud makes more sense than what you may think, and it's actually pretty cool. We have SQL reporting. So as you can see, we are putting a lot of our services here. Okay. Virtual network is interesting as well because it allows, this is more an enterprise offering that allows to create VPNs into your infrastructure. And we have Active Directory. That is another one where we're pretty good. The interesting bit of Active Directory is that it goes way beyond the idea of having your own directory. What a lot of users are using it for is that we have solutions that without any coding, even in Java, we have a tutorial, takes roughly 20 minutes to do it, so I don't have it now. We have a tutorial that shows you how just by configuring, I could protect this app using auth and asking you to log in with your Gmail account, your Yahoo account, your Facebook account, your Twitter account, or your Microsoft Live account. So we support that kind of federation, and we have a lot of experience. But, and here's where I wanted to get, we're not working alone. We do have a lot of partners, and those partners are bringing apps to the cloud. Those apps start being interesting. So, something that I particularly like, MySQL as a service. So your application needs MySQL, you can have it as a service. You don't have to manage it. You just get your credential and you're off to the races. Don't like MySQL? We can give you MongoDB. And while at it, we can talk about New Relic. So you can buy directly from Azure. The other interesting one is this one, EngineYard. We recently announced a big partnership together. So if you want to run your Ruby workloads, your Rails workloads, well, EngineYard is probably the place to go, and now they run on top of Azure. And we have a lot of them, and the list goes and goes. We are adding them every day. And the point here is that you are able to build your cloud app by using bits and pieces that are not only open, but also readily available to you as you go. So with that, virtual machines on one side, platform as a service on the other, open source SDKs, Linux in the cloud, Hadoop contributions, et cetera, et cetera. This is Microsoft today. This is the Microsoft that I'm proud to represent. I want to thank you for being here today, but I also need to take a couple more minutes of your time because now we're going to give this Surface RT and this Lumia phone to the lucky winner. Can you come up and help me out here? How do you want to do it?
I'll be the innocent hand.
Okay. So we have an innocent hand here. All right.
It's a Lithuanian person.
Okay. So is Valentina Bartusen in the room? Oh, look at that. That is the first shot. Both, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm jealous. I don't have either. I want them both. Oh, yeah, T-shirts, right? So Duke t-shirts with Azure. Anyone interested? 1, 2. Oh, 5 for it. I don't know if I can get it. Let me see. Look at that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I see that the other speakers are here. Please send me your question. Again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.